Record on my computer. Welcome. This is the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs. I'm Karen Lindvall-Borg, your president. We're speaking all month long about how to create really great, powerful presentations. And every week we do webinars on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Every single week we put them into our classroom. We're doing a recount. We don't even know how many classes are in there. I keep telling people over 500. And one of our team members the other day said, you know what, Karen, you keep saying over 500, and I think it's really closer to 1,000. So we're going to go try to find out for you. But let's say somewhere between 500 and 1,000 courses are in there. So every time these classes are recorded, we repost them for our members to see, and they go into our classroom. So if you're here today, you get the sneak peek and you'll get the recording anytime you ask for it. Since you were here, you can have the replay as well. We're here with Kricket Harrison this morning. She is a renowned speaker and speaker mentor, speaker coach as well. So before we do that, talk about her. Let me share a screen with you and talk to you just a quick snippet about the conference. It doesn't want to start. There we go. Start from the beginning. Again, we're the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs. Our goal is just to create connected and like-minded community and to provide some sort of education for Christian women entrepreneurs. Kricket and I were talking before we started the webinar this afternoon about the fact that it doesn't matter what college degree you got, very few of them really prepare you for how to really run a business with the nuts and bolts behind the scenes. That's me, Karen. We have a fan page of over 12,100 people, so we hope you'll pop on there and like us and follow us if you haven't already. And then we have a member page of about 96, I think, members right now. It changes every day. And so we hope you'll join us as a member and get back into the back end of things and really see what's going on and join us in a smaller, more intimate community. That's very encouraging. Want to invite you to our NACWE conference. We have 50 seats and about half of those are filled already. And it's here in McKinney, Texas on September 14th and 15th. We've had conferences NACWE's been in existence for about 8 years. We've had conferences for about 6 years. I think this is our 6th or 7th year to have a conference. And we'll be walking through some different stages of life as an entrepreneur with several different speakers and some breakout sessions, great food, a little bit of fun downtown historic McKinney's beautiful. We'll wear boots on Friday and we'll wear NACWE colors on Saturday. Really looking forward to it and I hope you'll be there. Again, we have been talking for the whole month of August, or we're going to talk for the whole month of August on how to really present powerful presentations. We heard from Linda last week. Her presentation will actually be in the free training. So if you go to NACWE.org, our website, and click on the top button that says free training, her presentation will be in there for a few months anyway. We kind of rotate in and out. And then we're hearing today from Kricket Cody Harrison on powerful presentations for profit. We're going to make some money. So I'm going to turn it over to you. You'll have to ask them to come in and chat in the chat box with you. Or yeah. Voice, and then I'll just let you do that and I'll mute myself and you can go for it.
Okay. We need to be able to show my screen.
So is it not letting you share your screen? Because
I don't see. Okay, share screen.
There you go.
And it should have popped up right where it was, and it didn't. Okay. Desktop. This is always the fun part of technology. Now, let's see if I do this differently.
If I make you the host, is it going to make me stop recording? Oh, there you go. Praise the Lord.
I had it up, and somehow when we clicked on it, it pulled away.
Very good. I didn't want to lose my ability to keep recording.
Yeah. No, it'll still record. Okay. So thank you for that, Karen. If you guys were hearing us chat a little bit, she asked me how I got started speaking. And I said I anchored the news in 5th grade. So if any of you remember elementary school, when you got all those opportunities to do things, that was it for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And I'll be really honest, I loved doing it, but I loved like being the anchor. I didn't want to be the person out in the rain and chasing down hurricanes and all that, but I've loved speaking ever since then. And so that's kind of how I got into this. My college degree was in psychology and communications back when we were first discovering what group functioning was and all that back in the 80s. So I'm dating myself a little bit. And then from a coaching standpoint, I started coaching in 2002. I was raising 3 children and had my first speaking client in 2004. And that came about just because, people were uncomfortable speaking. I would go to networking events and I'd see women who had been sitting there, and I wish you could see me. They would be like, imagine your hands are on your thighs while you're waiting at your networking event to speak. And they would be doing this, and they'd get up in a skirt and they'd have claw marks up their legs. And it would pain me to see how uncomfortable people were speaking, not only in a networking environment, but then to talk about their business or to talk about something they wanted to sell. They didn't know how to do it. So that's a little bit about how I got started. Again, I started in 2002, and I, for the past 2 years, I ran or was lead coach and trainer for a group called Speak, which is a business mastermind and speaking program run by a NSA, National Speakers Association Hall of Fame speaker and a 7-figure coach. And I'm also a certified master speaker through that program, as well as a professional member of the National Speakers Association. And what that means and why that's important, because you're going to hear from tons of people that speak and tons of people that do presentations. What that means is it's actually my profession. My goal, ultimately, right now, I split it with coaching and doing other things, but I actually get paid to speak, as opposed to buying sponsorships and buying your spot on stage. Now, I do the speak to sell model as well, which we'll talk about, but that's the separation. When you see somebody that's at that professional level, that means I've done the work and I've done a certain minimum requirement, and I, little overachiever, went over that because I thought I needed more. But that's really, it doesn't mean necessarily that I'm better than other people. It means that maybe I have a better business model than other people, unless they're doing only speak to sell. Speak to sell is when you speak for free at an event and you find other ways to grow your list by getting names on your list, and you make an offer down the road. So let me jump in here. So I've already started telling you a little bit about me, and actually I'm going to move your little pretty faces so I can see where my little slides are. And just because the question that burns everybody is Kricket my real name? It's actually part of my keynote talk. You always take something that's unique to you and your story, and it's something that no one else can take, right? No one can go out and say, well, I should have been called Kricket, and start giving my speech. My older brother couldn't say Kathleen. So one of these days I'll come up with something really exciting. But for those of you of a certain generation, you might remember Connie Stevens was on a show back in the late end of a decade, and I believe her name was Kricket. And so my brother heard that and called me Kricket instead of Kathleen. So that's my name. I am in Atlanta, Georgia. And my speaking career, like I said, I've coached other speakers. What really happened is my speaking topic, this is going to be a little interesting for you all to understand. My speaking topic originally is productivity and performance. I have a real stake in the ground about teaching people to work the way they work best. Not everyone should be a speaker. Most people probably, yeah, but not everyone. Not everyone is a great writer. So in my coaching style, I'm not going to force you to write a blog if you're not a writer. I believe that when you work the way you work best, the way your brain processes information, the way you naturally do things, you will be far more successful. I think we spend way too much time, to put it this way, trying to be left-handed when we're right-handed, right? We might gain a little strength, we might gain a little control, but we're never going to be as strong as that dominant side. So I started doing it this way, and my strength was in speaking. And I grew my business one year about 300%, which means I tripled my business through speaking. And the more I did that, the more people were saying, hey, can you teach us how you're doing the speaking? How are you speaking? And I was like, well, I don't know. I've always done it. And then I got pegged to lead this training group that I mentioned to you called Speak, which has since changed its structure. So they don't do a big training anymore. So I'm looking at my little slide to you, and I'm thinking, what is the one sentence or speaking subject? That's something we speak on very highly, is you have one thing you're known for. You don't have 10 things. You are not an expert at everything and a master of nothing. In my case, what I'm doing is a little bit backwards to what I teach, and I just want to acknowledge that up front and tell you how and why that came about. So I give talks on discovering your dynamic DNA, aka why do I do that? I give talks on discover your procrastination profile, why putting things how putting things off is putting you out of business, things like that. Again, the more I have been doing this, people say, well, how are you doing it? Can you teach us? And because I was successful doing it, I now teach other people how to do it. So when I talk to you all about kind of what it is you talk about, I'm going to really encourage you. You talk about one main thing. Main thing doesn't mean you're going to give the same talk. But if you heard me say, I talk about procrastination and I talk about dynamic DNA, which is why do I do that or how do I do that? Both of those underneath are all about working the way you work best. Why do you procrastinate? How do you follow through? All those things. So one thing I'd like to know from you is what's the one thing you want to learn? And I'm going to pop your little pretty faces up here again because they're disappearing on me and I like seeing you. So I'd love to know in the chat, and if I can pull the chat, Karen, I might need your help with this because my chat doesn't show up when I've got full screen. But if you can just tell me, what's something, I know Karen mentioned she wants to learn, how does she actually get paid? She's out doing some things, but she's not getting paid. So what's something you want to learn in this? And if anybody types in, then, or you can, if you're not on mute, I don't know, Karen's got that, I don't, you're welcome to speak up. And if you don't know, I'll just keep going. It's all cool. And for those of you who are watching this later, I think Karen and I talked about putting this in the Facebook group. Do hashtag replay and tell me what your question is. That way I know you're watching this, that you weren't live on here. You're watching this in a replay. And for those of you watching live now, this is a little trick. So I'm going to teach you some things. I'm also going to tell you why I'm teaching you those. Right? So hashtag replay whenever you do a Facebook Live, whenever you do an event that's going to be video. Now, don't do this in a speaker reel video. This is for this kind of atmosphere where it's going to be posted someplace else. It creates more engagement. I don't know about you, but I have listened to calls and I've been like, oh, I want to say something. I want to chime in. And then I remember I'm listening to a recording and there's really nothing to chime into on the other end and feel kind of silly, but people want that engagement. So one way around that is hashtag replay, and then you answer the question asked. So and for people listening now, the question I asked is, what's one thing you hope to learn? If you are listening to the replay, I certainly hope we cover it. And I'm going to look because I think I can pop in here now.
The chat room is starting to come forward.
Okay, good.
I had said wanting to shift my money mindset related to speaking, and what is the power in the presentation? Someone else, Jean had said how to gain profit without being, I don't know, so self-promoting. Dahlia said her speaking subject matter is college prep, and she wants to be a better storyteller.
Awesome.
I think that's what
Dahlia's right on track. That's awesome. I have actually a very dear friend who does college scholarships, so she might be a good person to connect you with later, so remind me of that. Okay, so I'm going to move on and see what my little computer will let me do. There we go. So I've given you my story. My mission is really, I just can't tell you how strongly I feel about this. If you go to the National Speakers Association level, and this is my goal for everyone, it's just to be that comfortable. It doesn't mean you're out making your living that way, but my goal is to teach you. I guess a good expression is I'm going to teach you like you're going to college, not like you're going to go work in the field. I'm fine if you go work in the field because it takes knowledge and science and expertise these days to do all that, but I'm still going to give you everything I can and let you do with it what you will. And the reason I do that is the less than 5% of the top speaking population is women. And that just bugs me and pains my heart. I don't know how you all feel when you hear that, but I'm sure you're probably the same way. It's like, man, what is it about women? What are we doing or not doing? What needs to change? How do we flip the dial on this a little bit? More diversity and more women on panels, more women speaking at conferences, main stage speakers that are women. So that's a lot of my mission, my mission. It's work the way you work best. And if that is through speaking, if your message is best through speaking, which for a lot of people it is, I want to help you be your very best so that it really changes lives out there. I think each of us is given a talent and we want to maximize that talent. So, and again, we're going to create awareness around communication, storytelling style, content and delivery, and different ways to create profit. So those are a couple of the things I'm going to look at. And for time's sake, what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of go through some stuff. And This does not like to switch slides for me. I'm getting a little thumping sound, so give me just a second here. Click this here. There we go. That worked. I want you guys to sit back and relax. I go fairly quickly because we have a lot of information. I'm giving you like the big helicopter view, right? I could do an entire week and not go and do 8 hours a day, and we could take lots of notes. This is what I know from a performance level, and this is actually about productivity too. You need to work the way you work best. The way you work best, believe it or not, is never frantically taking notes. Your brain cannot listen and write and form the letters, even if there's no lines, and do all that and remember and engage in everything at once. So what I encourage you to do is pay attention. Eyes and ears together are the strongest format we have for getting information into the working brain. So I want you to be comfortable, take care of yourself, get some water if you need it. Pay attention, listen, go back. If you're a note taker, if you like to outline, go back and listen to a replay and then write your highlights and your oh yeahs and your ahas. Do it that way. I promise you it works better. There are little breaks for questions. I'm going to go through some content, and then you'll see a little question icon up there with the little character, and we'll see if there's any questions about what I've covered. And then Karen, if you'll give me, I'll try to look at my watch without being rude, but if you'll give me when I've got about 10 minutes left and then 5 minutes, and you can just, hold up your hand and then like that, that'd be great. Social media, I'd love for you to follow me on Instagram. I want you to pay attention right now, teaching moment. Notice my Instagram handle. It used to be my name. Now it's Kricket Harrison Speaker. Anything I post on Instagram that someone sees, it says speaker after my name. That is continually, how in marketing we talk about 7 touches, about putting, ideas in people's heads. So if you guys if somebody says to you, I need a speaker, do you know one? It's going to pop into your head. I changed it. It used to be my name. Now it's Kricket Harrison Speaker. We go to the Atlanta United soccer games. And there's this whole kind of challenge in the communities to get on the big screen, right? Everybody loves the big screen. I do it with my daughters, my husband. I can't tell you how many times 70,000 people have seen my Instagram handle. It's a slow process. It's not like they're all going to hire me overnight. But again, I'm instilling an idea, right? I'm instilling a title and an expectation of what I do, and in their mind that it's not just Kricket Harrison, it's Kricket Harrison Speaker. So there's another little teaching moment there. My Twitter handle is @BrightCoach. My company is Bright Outside the Box, teaching you how to stand out, be seen, and make money. I want you to stand out. I don't want you to take your talents and tuck into a group and hide. That's not what we were made to do. And then, of course, you've got my Facebook there, Kricket Cody Harrison. And then below that, where it says Bright Outside the Box, that is my Facebook group. There's a business page, of course, but my group is where everything happens. It is totally free to join. I do live trainings like this one in my group, little Facebook Lives, little aha moments, things that happen. I've shared a great pair of shoes the other day to wear on stage. Like, there's all sorts of just kind of fun stuff. So feel free to join me in there. Just go to facebook.com. I think it's /groups with an S / Bright Outside the Box. If it doesn't pull up that way, just Google groups Bright Outside the Box and it'll pull up. So we're going to move along. Okay, we're going to talk first about the pitfalls. And I told Karen, I'm going to come from the place of kind of the psychology of a presentation. I've been into the membership database. You have tons of speaking presentation skills in there. And that's where people focus. And you need that. Don't get me wrong. I teach speaking all day long. I teach the components of a story. I have a talk called Speaking Your Mind to Grow Your Business, how to make yourself stand out, create expert status, all that. But what I'm finding is people focus so much on the talk that they forget about the rest. And the rest, if you don't do the prep work, you're dead in the water when you get there. It won't matter what you say. So we're going to start there today, and then we're going to, continue through some things. And again, if you want more on the specifics of the speaking and the talking, we'll get that in my Facebook group. And then I believe in January we're going to talk about what I call messaging. And messaging is not marketing. In my case, messaging is about your core message of speaking. It's that piece of how can I do 5 different talks so I'm not doing the same presentation all the time, but my underlying message is always the same. So you get known for one thing and you get that masterful status, right? That's part of how you get paid to speak. Okay, you have to be known for something, not known for everything. Known for something. Nike is known for their athletic shoes. They are not known for cowboy boots. They do one thing, athletic shoes, really well. Now, within that realm, they vary, right? Basketball, football, tennis, that kind of thing. But they didn't go out and make pumps. Well, they did the Cole Haan thing, I have to say. Didn't Nike do that? But they didn't go out, you know what I'm saying, and make cowboy boots. And they didn't go out and do a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's what I want you to think about too. What's my one thing? And the first thing we're going to talk about in my 3 Ps, one of them is presence. And presence is an energetic place, and it's how you show up. So this actress's name, I swear to God, I need my children hearing, excuse me, I don't say the G word like that very often. For the life of me, I cannot remember her name, but she's in Harry Potter. And one of these days, I'm just going to put her name on the slide because I do this every time. But she is an actress, makes a very good living. And would you know that if you saw her right now in this picture? You wouldn't, right? So when you are preparing, you need to know your audience. And I'll get into that a little bit more. You need to know your group, who you're going to be around, and you need to know what you look good in. And you need to know what the background is. So like for Karen's conference coming up, her speakers need to know what the backdrop is. Because if the backdrop's black and you wear black, you're going to be a floating head. You might love bright colors, but if the backdrop is that turquoise or that, I think it's orange or gold, and you show up in that color, again, you're going to blend in and not be seen. So there's some pieces that are very strategic in terms of that. And the other thing you want to do is you want to be just above the level of your audience. So what that means, if you're too far above them, there's a disconnect. You know, if you run around in blue jeans all day and somebody walks in some super high-end outfit and has the appearance and the presence to you that, oh my gosh, they've never struggled. How do they understand where I am? There's a disconnect. They will never hear your message before you have said a word. Okay. You want to know your audience, and then you want to be just a little bit ahead of them, just a little bit above. Take it up a little notch. Don't take it up to here. Take it up a little bit of a notch. And then expectations. What's the expectation of the audience? I'm going to share some handouts with Karen that she's going to put in the group after we talk. And one of the things I always do is I ask my either event planner, or in this case, if it was Karen, I would say, you know, tell me about your members. What do they like? What do they do? I want to be able to relate to them. I want to know where they are and where they're coming from. So I make sure that I've got that feeling at a time. There's a trick to figuring things out on stage. And the more you speak or present in front of a room, the more you'll get better at reading people. But you don't want to walk in and go, holy cow, I'm in the wrong room, and feel like that, right? You want to have a concept of what's happening. Do you match your brand? And by that, I don't mean in colors. It's great if you look good in your brand colors. Do not show up in the same outfit every time and we had one of our clients in our training program always wore a red jacket. And she's like, well, I look good in red. But the problem is she became known as the lady in red. And if somebody asked, hey, do you know so-and-so? They'd say, oh yeah, she's the lady in red. And they'd say, well, what does she speak on? Well, I don't know, but she always wears red. Or do you know so-and-so? Oh yeah, she's the one with the zebra heels that were so cool. And I had a lady show up and do a training, and she had these zebra heels on. And it was great. I love me some shoes, and they were gorgeous shoes. But if you're speaking where you're elevated on a platform, the audience level is down waist low. Everybody could tell you about her shoes. Very few people could tell you what she said. Okay. So match your brand, don't match for colors. Meaning if your brand is classy, show up classy. If your brand is, if you're a trainer, it's okay to show up as a trainer. I wouldn't show up in like kind of the really short volleyball shorts. I might wear the longer leggings and a nicer, upscale kind of whatever outfit that is for you. But you can dress your brand without matching your colors, if that makes sense. Does your message and your talk match your brand? If I'm going to talk about, speaking from the stage, and my messaging is on, I don't know, something about networking, and I've never spoken from the stage, that's going to show up. You have to watch that your messaging and what you're saying. I talk about standing out. If I go up and talk about everything to do to blend in on stage, that doesn't match, right? It doesn't make sense to people. And again, I'm talking about stuff before you've even said a word. And the reason I'm talking about that is because it creates a disconnect. And here's kind of the crucial piece of that. This one's out of place. So I'm going to jump ahead, and then we're going to come back to this because I did mention this a second ago. The thing about the disconnect is you lose trust. The brain automatically, remember its sole job is to protect you and keep you alive. And it says, disconnect, something's wrong. She looks different than her photo. So if you've got a look or a message or something about you that is far different than what you said you're going to speak on or do, they're not going to hear what you have to say. Now, they might smile and nod and all that, but at some point they'll check their phones or anything. There will be a complete disconnect. You will not have trust. So I just casually mentioned pictures. Make sure your pictures look like you. If your pictures are really old, I had a colleague show up one time that I met in a networking or in a mastermind group, and beautiful lady, pictures were great. We would have all guessed probably mid to late 50s. Y'all, she showed up and she was probably in her early 30s. Most of us don't go that direction in our photos, but you talk about a disconnect. We couldn't even tell it was the same person. I can't tell you, you can't get past that. So again, this is why I think some of this stuff is so important. We focus so much on the talk and what am I going to say? And we don't do the pre-planning work. We don't do the getting ready work. And it doesn't matter what you say at this point. So I talked a little bit about messaging. Is your title, is it easy to understand? Does it convey the message and the transformation? I'm talking about presentations, and we're going to talk about profit. That was really easy to understand. If your title is a little bit ambiguous to create, some lure and attractiveness, make sure the subtitle says what it is or what the promise is. So if it's going to say, 6 transformational strategies that will, and then say, help you triple your profits in 6 weeks or whatever. You need that other piece because otherwise people aren't going to connect. So does your talk, does it match who you are and what you do? If people look you up, does it match what you've been saying places? Is your title easy to understand? People aren't, if you're at a breakout session, like for a conference, if people don't understand your title, they will not go. I can't tell you the number of times I've been at conferences and seeing people stand out and there's like a group gathered and they're all like, well, which one are you going to? Well, what are you going to? And, well, I don't know. I don't know what that one does. Well, I really don't know if I need that. They can't tell. Okay, that's not a strong enough title. And it's just a good thing to be aware of. Titles can be tricky. So it's a good thing to be aware of. Your title needs to have, yes, you want to have something that's intriguing, but it needs to say what it's going to do or what the benefit's going to be. And sometimes if you're in a place where something you do is Reiki or if you do the shamanic readings or something like that, I want you to focus on the benefit of the benefit. I don't want you to get caught up in the what you do. I want you to talk about the benefit of what you do. So again, you're not going to put that in your title if that's something you do. If you do something different, some type of healing modality, or, I don't know how many different businesses are represented here, but I'm assuming probably quite a bit. You want to make sure that the how is not part of the title. It's just going to be the benefits, the results. What's the end user going to leave with? Okay. And then I think, they need to pop. Atmosphere. So this is a really interesting one, and this is one that you cannot always control, but here's what, remember, there's a psychology to this, right? You want to always be in the room, walk the room ahead of time. If you're at a conference or breakout session, always go in for a sound check. If the host does not give you a sound check time, you ping them and you say, when is my sound check? You never want to be figuring this out when you walk into the room. It takes you out of that presence piece for yourself. Know what you need in the room. Know what your logistics are, know what the lighting is. I mentioned the backdrop in this case with this picture, right? Somebody wearing black. Can you see how they'd be a floating head? Get a feel for the energy level of the room, empty and full. The room has an energy. Is it lit well? Is the ceiling low? That kind of a thing. What's the feel? If the room, I was at a conference in Atlanta, downtown, one of the great big hotels that does this all the time. And it was really interesting because the ceilings were not low, but they felt low. And I cannot tell you, I'm not super tall, 5'5" on a good day, 5'8" in a good pair of heels. But you felt like you just felt it coming down. and it was a high ceiling, but it wasn't well lit, and it was gray. And I can tell you the person holding that conference struggled. She did it to fill her mastermind, and she struggled at that event. And I think the room had a lot to do with it. It's your job in a room like that to make sure you've got something to bring that energy level up where you want it. What's the setup you want? And I'll go into this, I think, a little bit more in a different slide. It might be the next one. And then again, what's the tone? You set the tone. What's your walk-on music? I don't know if you've ever thought about walk-on music. Now, if you're in a small conference room at a corporate event, you're not going to have walk-up music. They'll just tell you to keep on walking. But whenever you do your own event, never hold back. I don't care if you're doing your own event for 6 people in your own little mini conference room. Have some music playing at the energy you want in the room. I was at a networking event not too long ago, and the energy in the room, it was a smaller crowd. It was only about 15 people. And usually at these, we have at least 30. So it was just timing. And the energy was really popping and really buzzing. And the head of the group stopped and kind of said, okay, I'm going to get us started. And she did like this meditation thing. And she even said, well, I really hate to bring the energy of the group down. And in my head, I'm like, then don't, like you're crushing. And she meant well, and she had a great heart. And I know that. But the speaker side of me was like, you never kill the energy in your own room. And then the speaker speaking then was walked in, and all of a sudden this room is all subdued. And now her job is to lift them back up. So as a speaker, you want to have as much control over that as you can. Again, tone can be set by music. It can be set by how you open. It can be set by the setup of the room that you can only sometimes control. And again, we're going to get into that a little bit more. But think about this stuff ahead of time. What do you want the room to look like? What do you need present in the room and the atmosphere? And I think I get to this in a minute. And it's so funny because I'm on a new computer and all my little slides are down here. But you have whenever you're doing this, you are speaking for the purpose of blank. And you're working backwards from blank. I'm going to speak and do a presentation to fill my mastermind, to grow this program, to get more speaking gigs under my belt for practice, to do a TEDx. Whatever that is for you, you have an end result in mind and you're going to work backwards. So you think about the setup of the room and the tone and the atmosphere. Is it going to fulfill your end result purpose for speaking? So I said this earlier, all of this together before you have said a word engages the audience and builds trust. You can spend hours upon hours having the best speech ever. And if you walk out and there's a disconnect with the audience, all that looking talk is lost. And that's one of the places that I see people struggle. They focus so much on the actual words they're going to say and the talk themselves, and they haven't thought about it in terms of a business model. The speaking is to grow the business. The speaking is to sell my book. The speaking is for X. And all of these things need to be in place as part of my package. Again, it's part of your brand. It's part of who you are. I heard, and I'm drawing it, Herb, the guy that runs Life is Good. I heard him speak, and he showed up in jeans, and I think he had a button down partially untucked, and he's in flip-flops, and he's kind of a hippie looking guy anyway, if you can think of a little Life is Good smiley faces and stuff, and it just fit his brand. And as he's talking on stage, he's walking around, and he's talking as if he's just speaking off the top of his head, none planned, none rehearsed. And he kicks off his flip-flops and walks around barefoot. And he looks so natural, and it fits him to a T. Now, if I did that, y'all be going, oh, her feet must hurt in those shoes. You'd start thinking about why I'm doing that, and you'd go into your heads, and I would lose you. But for this gentleman, the Life is Good, one of the brothers of the Life is Good, it fit his brand and his personality so well, everybody thought he just did it in the moment. Ladies, he does that every time he speaks. Every time. But because it's part of his brand and it's so true to him, and I haven't really mentioned the word authenticity because I think it's kind of a buzzword. I think it's about being true to yourself and, again, what your gifts are. Because it was part of him, it was so natural that nobody figured it out. So you need that trust, and all of this comes together, right? All of this little pre-stuff that doesn't seem so important because you're so worried. Most of us are so worried about the talk and what we're going to say and what if I forget and oh my goodness. We've got to have the other stuff in place. Okay, so that's part of my first thing. The second thing I see people struggling with is planning. So we talked about presence. This is planning. What's the desired outcome of the talk? That's where I said I want you all to make yourself a sticky note for everything you do. This is a productivity tip as well. I'm doing this for the purpose of blank, and fill in the blank. I don't care if it's I'm going on Facebook to kill time. It can be I'm doing this for the purpose of I need a break. That's fine. I want you to be consciously aware of it. The same thing with your talk. I'm doing this for the purpose of my desired outcome is just to get out and practice, is to educate people on, I have a friend who does a thing on drunk driving. It's a nonprofit, so she raises money, but her purpose really is just to educate parents and save kids' lives. I'm doing this for the purpose of selling my book. I'm doing this for the purpose of growing my business. And I'm going to pause right there because I'm going to tell you the absolute fastest way to grow your business is through speaking. I have helped real estate agents speak. I have helped financial planners speak. There is no one and no occupation out there that if you are an entrepreneur or responsible for your own income, so some of those are my attorneys as well, right? If you're responsible for your own income, speaking is the absolute fastest way to grow your expert status in your business. And then the next thing we add on is turn that talk into a book. Work backwards. I mentioned that a little bit. Start with the end in mind, work backwards. What are the stories that I want to tell that support this ending, that support my request? When I do my talk strictly on talking, we talk about you don't have the right to make an offer, which we'll get to when we talk about the profit piece, until you've given a really good talk. So what's the really good talk I need to support the offer I'm going to make? Well, here's my offer. Here's what I want to do in my business. What's going to lead, and I want you to work backwards. What's going to lead up to that, right? And people sometimes I know we hear this, right? We've all heard this in our heads. We know what to do, but we forget. And when we sit down to do it, sometimes the brain just goes all wonky on us. It's like, oh, I don't know. I want to tell this story. Where does it? And we start going in circles. And here's what I want you to think. When you get up in the morning and you have to be someplace at 9 o'clock, you work backwards. You're just not telling yourself you're working backwards. You say, I need to get up. I've got to eat breakfast. Traffic's going to take me this long. So if I want to be there at 9 in traffic, I need to leave by 8. And you're working backwards. If I have to leave by 8 and I want to do this, and I want to work out, I need to get up at 6. You work backwards in your life all the time. You're just not consciously thinking of it. So this idea of working backwards in a talk is something you do every day. You're just not thinking about it in terms of a presentation. So just know that you can do the same thing. If I want to sell my book at the end, what do I need to do? What's the best story? What do I need to have in place? What do I want? Is there a certain song I want to play that might be about writing a book? There's plenty of telling your story. There's plenty of music out there that kind of supports things. And that's why I want you to start thinking. There's a lot of strategy to a presentation. Part of planning is establishing your style. I mentioned this a little bit, the promoter's style, the audience style, and then you're going to want to adapt. Know what your style is. I am just as comfortable as on stage as I would be in a pair of blue jeans sitting on a table, swinging my feet and speaking. My style is pretty flexible. I can do pretty casual. I've had an audience of 3 where I did my whole presentation. I just did it sitting down in a really, we got close and we had a really intimate, but I did the whole talk. I didn't leave anything out. I gave them the full experience, but I gave it to them because my style is such that I work well that way. Know your style. If you're a high energy person, then you want to make sure you're fitting the audience's style. And I want to say something here, and I want you all to hear this. You don't have to be a high energy person, right? What you have to look at is, does your style fit the audience style and the promoter's wishes of where you're going to be? If you are the after lunch speaker, or if you're doing a lunch and learn, you're going to have to up your energy a little bit. It doesn't mean you have to do this and be loud and all this stuff and be in someone's face. It means you have to up it a little bit to hold their attention. You're competing with phones. Your biggest competition these days is electronics. It's not other people who do what you do. It's not other businesses. It's electronics. You're going to have to hold their attention. You're going to have to learn a little bit of some humor. How do you pull them in? If you're speaking at a conference level, like breakouts or on a main stage, and your style is quiet, and you are the speaker after lunch or after dinner, again, you got to really bring your game. If you are speaking after somebody else who is really loud and almost kind of yells, but that fits them, you may want to be the one who pulls back a little bit. You have to know your style, the audience, what they respond to. One of the things I often teach people is know what you need, but know what your audience needs. Not just in terms, and we'll talk about on learning, but on does your audience need to move around? If your audience is a bunch of creatives, they need to move. They need to interact. And we'll get to that in a second, but you got to know your audience's style. Your audience's style is very seldom lecture style, unless you are actually being paid or coming in to speak to teach, say, a specific LinkedIn course. And even then, I would encourage you to do it more as a keynote, even if you're content-based, more as a keynote. And have the ability to adapt. Know that, okay, I'm usually really high, and this is a kind of subdued crowd, so I'm just going to take it back a notch. Don't lose who you are, but be confident enough in who you are and what you do that you can adjust, okay? Timing, length of the presentation. One of the first things I've said to Karen multiple times, how long do I have? What's my time? And I keep checking my watch because we're going to be really tight and I'm going to have to go really fast. Depends on whether you can make an offer or not. It depends on whether you start late or not. Try to get as much warning as you can. Know your timing, because what happens if something runs over? Say the speaker before you runs over, or say you're going to do a lunch and learn, and all of a sudden the president comes in and takes 10 minutes of your time. You don't get to go over. You still have to end on time. And I'm going to be modeling that for you guys pretty quick here. So I think we've got about 10 minutes. Is that right, Karen? So get all that down, know your talk, know what your offer is. And again, your offer is usually, if your talk, say, is 45 minutes, your offer is no more than 5 to 10 minutes. You want good content. Ask for handouts. Are they required? Are they allowed? Do you have them done? Do you print them for me? What's needed? Who ships? Are you covering my shipping? If you're speaking for free, ask them to cover your shipping or to print all the documents for you. And then delivery. What happens before and after you go on? Here's the different room setups I mentioned. The top one is just typical learning style. That's great. I mean, typical rows. That's great for like if you're offering a mastermind, when people are close together, the energy gets really tight and the oxytocin is released and there's a lot of bonding and people want to be a part of something. And then you also have conference style, again, circles, helps people with writing. I would try never ever to do what we call education or classroom style, which is that straight table with the chairs behind it and they're really close together and inevitably somebody leans back and knocks over the water on your stuff. I would try never to have that set up if you can. You can't always. So if you have that set up, then you say to the people, okay, real quick, we're going to go really busy here. We're going to be full. So if you want to go ahead and grab some water now, and then let's just move those pictures out of the way. Like, make a light of it, make jokes of it, make fun of what's in the room, acknowledge what's happening so people aren't uncomfortable. It helps relieve the tension. And then does the room layout, again, support what you want? So, Karen's hosting this conference. Let's just say she was doing this like some entrepreneurs do with a big mastermind. That top setup you see is the best for that. You don't see it done as much now because the groups tend to be a little bit smaller. But again, it's to create the energy in the room that she wants for the offer. And then do you have a follow-up system in place? One of the pieces is personal. What do you need? What do you need for you guys? When you get into speaking, you've got to be in shape. You've got to be able to talk for long times. You've got to be able, if you're traveling, you've got to have meals. You've got to eat healthy. There's all sorts of things. Do you need tech support? Do you need a friend or a coach to help you, or somebody to text you and say, hey, you're doing great. You're a rock star. So think about that. And then practice. So practice. I can't tell you how much I see people say, I'm going to wing it. Winging it will work once. And it is disrespectful to your audience to not put in the time and deliver your absolute best. I want you to imagine going to a Broadway play and they were winging it. It's the same thing. Be the consummate professional. Okay? Use cards, note cards, what to do. If you're going to be paid to speak, and I want you guys to hear me, you cannot read anything off of anything. Which means I have slides up here and there's words, but if I said, well, the big debate is to memorize or to use note cards or just to use a part, and I read that to you, again, you guys can read. I don't need to read to you. Get comfortable with things, find out what's working for you, what's not, what do you need to do. Watch yourself, guys. People don't like to do it. That's how you get better. Practice with video and audio. You need to watch yourself. How do you show up? Do you talk with your hands? And if you're on a video like this, you want to make sure that you're not just jazz hands dancing around here all the time, because at some point in time, all you're going to watch is my hands and you're never going to remember what I said. Okay. So watch for those things and then listen back to yourself. How is the pace? I'm guessing my pace is fast because we got a lot to get through. And I know we started a little bit late, so I don't know if we have any flexibility with that, but I'm going to do my best to stay on time here. So again, watch yourself. The more comfortable you get, the more comfortable you are when you make the offer. And if people are heckling you, or if you get the person in the back of the room who kind of does and thinks they should be doing what you're doing and they know more, you will be far better if they throw you a curveball, and especially a question, the more practice you've had. Okay, and I want you to remember, it's not just a presentation. It's not just a talk. There is a performance piece to this. That's the practice. That's getting comfortable. You want to be so comfortable that people can't tell you've practiced. Okay, so think about that. So comfortable that people can't tell that you practiced, like the Life is Good guy, right? So normally we pop in and have questions. I'm going to ask you to put them in the chat just so I can go through the next pieces. We're going to talk about content quickly. I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning. Be really clear on your content. What's your purpose? Why are you here? And stay clear on your message. Do not wander off, okay? Be clear on what your end result is. And if you were on someone else's stage or webinar or anything else, make sure you know what their purpose is and what their outcome and end result is that they want for their attendees, okay? Like I said, I see people wander off all the time. Give them what they want. You might still teach them what they need, but you give them what they want, okay? Clearly state the transformation. I mentioned that in the beginning with the talk title. Be really clear. Don't make people have to think to figure things out. Don't use terminology they don't understand, because here's what happens. If I start talking about something, I don't know, just something random that you guys haven't heard before, in your head, your eyes kind of start going up. And you start thinking, oh, I wonder what that is. Or somebody Googles it on their phone and leans over and says, well, that's what this means, or that's what this is. And you lose people. Don't talk down to them, but talk to them like they're a 5th grader to an 8th grader. Use language that does not have to be deciphered. Okay? Stay on topic. Again, if you're going to give stories, if you're going to, which I want you to do, stay on topic. This is the highway route versus the country road. Country road is this. Highway route. All your stories point to the end result that I mentioned. Avoid over delivering. People get confused. Confused mind will never buy. They might buy a book if you're lucky, but other than that, they'll be, oh, I'm not sure, and oh, I don't know, and it won't be worth waiting in line if they buy a book. They won't buy, and if they do, they're the #1 people to return. So keep that in mind. Provide an outlet for the audience. Remember how I mentioned that people that were creative, they need something to do. So if you're sitting in those rows of seats, like that top picture I showed you, let them turn and talk to each other. Let them turn and say things. Creates, again, release of oxytocin, especially in women, creates bonding. And people like to share their story, and they become more attached to you when they do so. Okay? Give them, if you want handouts, fill in the blanks. I'm a fan of fill in the blanks. Don't spell things out for them. If you're going to give them papers, I'm going to encourage you to give them either the fill in blanks or blank paper. Don't give them the lines, no thing. And really, I would encourage you to, especially if you're doing something ahead of time, say to people, well, you might want to take notes, so grab some paper. Let them be responsible for their own learning. Your job is to deliver. Their job is to take in what they can and learn, as long as you're presenting it in a way that they can absorb it. Okay, PowerPoint slides, like I told Karen, take your PowerPoint slides. Never, ever share slides like this. Put them in a PDF handout with a little notes section next to them. That's what you all will get. This is intellectual property. So from a speaker standpoint, I hate to say this for everybody listening, I hate to say this, but in the speaking world, there have been people who have taken somebody else's talk verbatim. And you think nobody would do it, and it may not be anybody in this group, but ladies, if you share your stuff out there and don't put your information on it, somebody will go do your talk for you, and then they'll claim it. I've had people try to do trademarks off of it and say, well, she didn't trademark it, so I'm going to do it first. Again, I tend not to think that way. And when you are using intellectual property, you have to start thinking about a business. This is a business. You are protecting your property. So take your PowerPoint slides, space for notes, which when you go to print, you go to PDF. So instead of print the page, it'll say print to PDF. And then it'll ask you how many per page. I usually do 3 per page and let them print front and back. But you want to have outlets. So if you want to do a handout, again, try to get the host to print if you're not getting paid to speak. And let them have that, okay? Stories, again, I mentioned people like to speak, creates the emotional, visceral response and connection. So stories engage the mind, but let them share stories. Turn to your partner and think about, one story you could tell that makes people laugh. Let them share, that kind of a thing. It's always good. And again, I mentioned sharing establishes trust and provides the space for validation. So this is a quote that I love. He who speaks the most falls in love first. Again, get your audience sharing. Okay. There's a difference sharing with each other and then maybe a few at the mic if you have time. Be mindful of people that want to take over and be really clear on one quick thing. And if they keep going on, just say, okay, I need to move on now in the sake of time, and just cut them off politely and keep going. Hold the stage, which means whatever your platform is. But again, for those of you wanting to make money, if they have time to share and be a part of something, they are more likely to purchase. Again, there's a whole psychology behind this. It's not just the talk. Okay, we're going to go on to call to action. Call to action. If sales are allowed, then you make it a special today, a limiter. If you've been around the entrepreneurial world for a while, you probably know these. So I might say in a room full of 50 people that I've got this class that I'm offering for $97. And for the first 5 people that register today, I'm going to give you a 30-minute one-on-one strategy call with me. That kind of a thing is always good to have bonuses, free copies of a book, audios. This is where you guys can make money if you're allowed pitch. So what is this? This is what we call speak to sell. I'm not getting paid to speak, but I can make an offer from the stage. Okay, I can make an offer. That's where they come onto your list, or that's where they buy something and you make money that way. That is the same as paid speaking. You're just paid on the back end instead of the front end. Okay. If no selling is allowed, then you can offer a special call to further review the information, like a Zoom call, and get them on your list. You can offer everybody a free gift, a bonus, something they opt in for, a strategy session. Ebook, audios. Holding a raffle is always great. Everybody in the room, drop your card in and we're going to draw, and somebody's going to get my free book bundle or something like that. And an evaluation stay connected form. And I'm going to do this quickly. The evaluation form is not letting them evaluate you. Okay, and I want you to hear that. They are not in a position to evaluate you unless they are an expert on speaking and an expert on your topic. Now, if they are a meeting planner and they see tons of speakers, they're going to have an opinion. But your general audience that hasn't done this, what you want them to say is, I always put, one thing I loved about this was, one idea I want to implement immediately is, leaves them on a good note. Mentally, they're thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to try that. And then at the bottom, I have, their information. And if they want to know more and, I would be interested in, and I have them click off something like that. So again, this is big picture. It was really fast, and I know that. So I want to encourage you to go back and listen, and we'll slow things down and take notes. If you go, again, my offer, let's be really transparent here, is I have a free Facebook group, and it is completely free. And I do a lot of Facebook Lives, and they're on different little things, on messaging, on speaking, on pros and cons of networking and what I'm seeing people. So networking is speaking, and I want you all to know that. Networking is presenting. Every time you do a 30-second or a 1 minute, it's presenting. I'm not a fan of the 30-second elevator speech. I never call it that, but it's presenting. So I teach those in my group in Bright Outside the Box. And the biggest thing with profit that I want to leave you guys in, what makes your talk powerful is the pre and the post, the follow-up, but having that good talk is knowing your topic, that one masterful thing that I mentioned. And then the one thing we don't do, ladies, is ask. You say, well, this is my normal fee. Or can I, if I'm for free, can I make an offer from the stage? Or can I offer something to your group? And do the ask. Value yourself. Women are the worst at asking other women to speak for free. Men don't do this. So value yourself find a way to make it worthy, find a way to make a sale. And, I'm happy to speak more on just the sales of speaking. That could be a whole nother call some other time. And let me pop in here. I know we're out of time. So again, y'all can post me questions in the Facebook group because I want to honor your time. So if that helps, post any questions you have in the Facebook group. And Karen, I'll turn it back over to you.
I know my head is spinning.
It's a lot, I know.
You said not to take notes, but I had to write down a couple of them. Walk-on music. That's what I wrote down. Oh my goodness,
it's fun.
I'm going to ask each speaker what sort of walk-on music do they want to be played while they come onto the stage. It's an awesome idea. Thank you so much. There were some conversations going on in the chat room, and we'll save the chat and send it to you so you can see.
I can't see the chat with the screen up, so I wasn't able to see that going, so I apologize for that.
Well, you would have had to have skewed your screen, and we understand that. It wasn't something I felt like I needed to interrupt you for, but oh my goodness, this is so good. Thank you so much. I'm looking even more forward to the Mastering Your Message in January. Kricket will be back with us, and we're going to drag along. I think we're going to drag along Patricia Fripp. She's talking to me about doing something that month as well, and others that have been introduced to me by Kricket and some other folks as well. So looking forward to next week as well. God bless you. Let me pray us out of here, and thank you so much, Kricket, for your time. We appreciate it.
And I'm going to answer the profit without self-promotion in the Facebook group.
Oh, in the Facebook group. Okay.
I'll answer
your Facebook group or in our Facebook?
No, in yours. In yours.
Okay. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Father God, thank you. We want to speak in ways that honor you, and we want to speak and pour into people's lives. It's what makes our world go round. It's what is so fulfilling about being an entrepreneur. And so thank you for Kricket's willingness to pour into us today. I would pray that everyone would take at least one or two things away from this presentation that will be game changers for them, that will really pop our presentations, add more power to them, like the walk-on music idea and things like that. I pray that those who come behind us and listen in later on the replays will be blessed as well, Lord. I pray a special blessing on her Facebook group, Right Outside the Box, and everyone who's in there listening. Just even if they feel like they're only listening to snippets, we know that you could use a snippet to change the face of their entrepreneur endeavor in a way that is pops and glorifies you. And we pray that in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thanks, everyone.